Are you lost in the chaotic whirlwind of day-to-day busyness? Do you yearn for a deeper sense of meaning and purpose in your life? Welcome to Be You, Your Story, Your Purpose, the podcast dedicated to empowering women on their journey of self-discovery and finding their true purpose through their own story. I'm your host, Brenda Simmons. Welcome, my friends, to the podcast. I'm so glad to be with you today. Last week, we talked about some laws of success. And the ones that we talked about were the law of transmutation, the law of relativity, the law of vibration, the law of restoration, and the law of polarity. And if you remember, the law of transmutation, that's the one that said that everything is either coming or going into or out of physical form. The law of relativity says nothing is good or bad, it just is until you compare it to something else. The law of vibration says that everything is in a state of vibration, and that vibration is a medium for transferring signals. It's a communication. And then the law of restoration says that which you give is what you will receive. So this is the law of attraction too. And remember, I liked the law of restoration better than the law of attraction. And then the last one we talked about last week was the law of polarity. And that means that everything has an opposite, and contained in every adversity is the seed of equal positive benefit. So I want to talk with you about the next 5. So I'm wanting to share with you 10 laws of prosperity, 10 laws of success that you can count on, because these are universal laws. They don't change. And so we either obey those laws, or we ignore them, or we leverage them to get to what we want, to be intentional about the life that we want, and to get the success and the prosperity that we are looking for. So the 6th law of success is the law of rhythms. This law says that life happens in cycles, and nature is our teacher on this. And I'm a nature lover, I'm a nature nerd, and I will take full ownership of that. But look at nature and how we have so many cycles in nature. We've got the seasons: fall, winter, spring, and summer. We've got the tides going in and out in the seas. We've got moon cycles where we can see that physically in the sky every night if it's not cloudy. We even have our own cycles, like our female cycles. This is part of the law of rhythms. Life happens in cycles every single day. It's living that life of cycle. So what this means, though, is that we will have times of ease and we will have times of challenge. The great thing about this is that a period of ease and a period of challenge doesn't last forever. Now, you may say, well, wait a minute. I want the life of ease period to last forever. Of course we do. But there's some really great benefits in those times of challenges. And I want to talk to you about that today. And this is why it's so, so beautiful. And to illustrate this point, I want to share with you a story. I took my girls to San Diego a few years ago. We just wanted to go on a girls' trip. And so we did a lot of really fun things. Well, this one day we went to the beach, and we got there at low tide. And we were walking around, and it was really cloudy the day that we went there. And it was kind of one of our first days there. And so we just wanted to see it because we don't live near the beach. And so as we got up there, I noticed that it was low tide. And so I thought, oh, what a great opportunity. And so we went down to all the tide pools and we just explored. And it was so fun because there's so many things that you could see in those tide pools that when the tide is up and it's there fully, they're totally obscured. And so this is kind of like life. When we are in those low tide moments, it's an opportunity for us to see things that we wouldn't normally see. And maybe those things are, beautiful things, like blessings that we never thought that we had. Or maybe they are things that we need to work on. Maybe these challenges are times where we employ a talent that we never knew that we had. But because we had that challenge, we were able to discover that. And so as we experience these low tides, these challenging moments in our life, they are wonderful opportunities to grow and to learn and to discover. And if we're always in that moment of ease and of bliss, we don't we're not able to rise as far because we don't experience those challenges. We don't develop the muscles and the strength that we need in life to really take us further. And so our low times are, even though they can be super challenging, and I'm not going to say that they're not, because and I've had challenging moments in my life that I thought, "Oh, when is this going to end?" And yet, as I look back at them, I can see the benefit that I had by going through that challenge, by making myself stronger. And so we can look at these and go, okay, how can we leverage the law of rhythms? Well, number one, I think it's managing expectations. If we're always thinking life is going to be easy, we're in for a really difficult awakening, right? Because nobody escapes the downs and the ups. Everybody has both. It's just the way life works. And so we can expect things, if we're in the middle of a down, we can expect that it's going to go up. If we're in the middle of an up, we can prepare because we can expect that we might experience something difficult. It's not to be all doomsday-ish, right? But there is a preparation that can happen in those good times, that so that when we are in those low times, they're a little bit easier to get through. So how are we leveraging that? We're managing the expectations, we're recognizing which season we're in, and we're understanding what triggers us, what triggers the change. Not for the positive and for the negative. That those are really, really great things to learn. Because I remember I was, I'd mentioned earlier I had gone through some severe depression. Several years later, I had come out of it, and then I could tell that I was slipping again. I was experiencing a really low, and I could tell that I was falling into that depression again. And because I recognized the triggers and I recognized what was going on within me, I was able to stop and do some course corrections because I had learned from that previous low. So those lows are super important. And then we can ask ourselves some questions. We can ask, what are we doing to prepare for or mitigate the effects of the challenging times during our good times? And then we can also ask, how can we seek to understand what we're discovering in our low times? So you can use that law of rhythms to really propel yourself forward just in the knowledge about yourself and in your talents and the things that you are able to accomplish. So the law of rhythms is truly an amazing law. The next one we're going to talk about is the law of cause and effect. And this law states that to every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And if this sounds familiar to you, it should, because it is Newton's third law. So this is a law of physics. So I want you to think about that for a little bit. When the shuttle is launching, right? And you've all seen the pictures, they go down to those boosters and they're shaking and you've got all that fire coming out, right? So that fire has to go more and more and more until the thrust is greater than the force of gravity pushing that rocket down. And so that's the only way that they can create that upward movement. That thrust has to be greater than gravity. And it may seem like in life, it takes so much effort to create movement. Like that effort is so monumental. And you can tell, like when that rocket ship goes off, like it's going just inches at a time, right? And then it starts gaining some momentum as those boosters they just keep going and they continue that thrust upward. And so sometimes we need that movement to be like that rocket where it's propelling us away from something, and sometimes we need that thrust to bring us towards something, right? I hope that makes sense. So when we move away from one thing, like the rocket is moving away from the earth, we are also moving away or moving towards something else. So if you've got a goal to make a change in your life, as you are taking that monumental effort to move away from it, you are getting closer and closer and closer to the new goal that you have. And here's what's super cool. The closer you get to your new goal, it comes closer to you. So remember, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if you're moving towards it, it's moving towards you. And so really what happens is you're actually meeting in the middle when you're working on that. So we really only have to go halfway. So that gives us a really fantastic perspective of, oh, it's coming towards me. And so I can just go until I meet it, and it's going to be here a lot sooner than I think it will. Now, one year, just to illustrate this point, I had one goal. I was coming out of this serious time of depression, and I was making that decision. I was going to make some changes, and but I was still learning the process of how that all works. And so this one year, I just said, I only have one goal this year, and that one goal is this year is not going to suck. That was my whole goal. This year is not going to suck. And I was so floored that guess what? That year was a horrible year because I had not understood, number one, my words are important and I need to put things in a positive light. But because I was so focused on things in a negative light, I was actually still moving myself towards negativity rather than positivity. And so I was able to learn from that experience, and I changed my words around. And now I'm very, very cautious of what words do I choose to describe where I want to go and who I want to be. And so that has made a huge, huge difference in my life. So you can see how I used the law of cause and effect, but not in a way that was beneficial towards me. So don't do what I did. So we can leverage this law of cause and effect then by being aware of our thoughts and our emotions and the actions that they are creating. We can look at our outcomes and work backwards, because sometimes we only understand the outcome. We don't understand how we got there. And so you can look at that outcome and go, okay, if I'm looking at the effect, what's the cause? And those causes are the thoughts, emotions, and the actions there. And so you can look at that backwards as well and figure out what's going on. We can also leverage the law of cause and effect by being deliberate and proactive in creating your life. So just like I thought I was being deliberate and proactive in creating a good year, but I didn't understand the nuances of how to do that. So as we focus on the positive things and as we move towards what we want in our thoughts and our emotions and our actions and the outcomes of them, then we will be able to see that cause and effect in our life, and we'll be able to leverage it to a place where we want to be. The eighth law of success is the law of gender and gestation. Obviously, when we're talking about gender and gestation, we automatically go towards, pregnancy, right? And developing a baby. And it is related to that. And I'll come back to that in just a second. But really what this is saying is that everything has a masculine and feminine quality, as well as an incubation period. So while automatically we think about pregnancy, that's not really what we're talking about here, although pregnancy illustrates this law perfectly. So a masculine energy really is like, it's assertive, it's driven, it's and I'm not talking about males, right? It's the masculine and feminine energy isn't gender. Masculine and feminine energy is just the energy in which things are created, right? So that masculine energy, like I said, is assertive, it's driven energy, whereas that feminine energy is more creative, it's meandering, right? And I will dive deeper into masculine and feminine energy another time, but just suffice it to say that there is a difference between those energies. Equally important in this law is that gestation period. Just like in pregnancy, you don't want your baby to be born too early, or else there's going to be a lot of consequences, a lot of physical consequences. And actually, there's a lot of trauma that goes on within that infant as a newborn if they are born too early. So if a baby does not develop long enough, it's going to struggle. And we actually experienced that, or not we, but my husband was born premature. And I said we experienced it because we are still experiencing the effects of his being born premature. His hearing never developed all the way. And so he has a lot of hearing issues. He has adult onset asthma that actually is, we have found to be traced back to being born premature. So there's a lot of physical effects that he has because that incubation period was not complete. And so this is the same principle for ideas and other things that we're trying to bring into creation. We need to give space for ideas, for relationships, for the life that we want to fully gestate. So, how do we have this proper balance of these masculine and feminine energies? And then, how do we make sure that what we're working on has that full incubation period? Well, that's part of leveraging this law. So, we need to remember to stay in our lane, right? For the action that we're doing, we need to understand, is this action a masculine energy or does it need a feminine energy? If you're trying to apply a masculine energy to a task that really needs a feminine energy, you're not going to succeed in what you're trying to accomplish. And the opposite is true as well. If you're in a feminine energy and what you really need is a masculine energy, then again, that you're in the wrong lane. And so we have to really understand, what is it that the task at hand needs and how can you get into that correct energy in order for the task to be able to be created in the way that it needs to be created. And then understand that once you're done putting things together, you may get stuck. You may go, what is it? Why I put it all together. Why is it that I can't, it's not coming to fruition? Why is it not working out like I want it to? And it may just be that the time isn't right for it to come forward. It might need to incubate a little bit longer. I worked with a gal named Jenny, and she's one of my best friends. And we had this phrase that we would use all the time because we were developing an after school program. We were developing a lot of community programs and a revitalization program for this downtown area that we lived in. And there were a lot of things that we were working on. We had all of these really great ideas, and we'd think about how we could do that, and we would get really close to implementation, and then we'd realize, you know what? It's not the right time. And so we would put them on the shelf. And that's what we called it. So the time isn't right. We're going to put them on the shelf. And then when the time is right, it's ready to take down. So just because you've completed something, putting it together, doesn't mean it's the right time for it to come forward into the world. So that is this law of gestation. And so we need to be very cognizant then of what are we doing and when is that right time. And so that's part of leveraging the law of gender and gestation, staying in that right lane, making sure that you are aware of the masculine or feminine energy needed in the moment, and then trusting the process, making sure that you are giving the right time to what it is you're trying to bring to life. So that is the law of gender and gestation. The next law is the law of flow. And this law says life depends on both an input and an output. And again, nature is our teacher here. And I love, love this law. I just think it's so super visual and it's so easy to understand because you can see it and then you can apply it. So again, look at nature. So look at lakes, right? A healthy lake must have water coming in, it must have that input, and it must have an output. The new water will bring in nutrients and it brings in new life for that ecosystem to work. Whereas removing the old water takes away the waste and the impurities and the contaminants that may damage that ecosystem. And our bodies work that same way, right? So think about that in terms of our bodies. But if you have one without the another, so again, going back to this lake analogy, if you have an input without the output, so you have water coming in, but it's just staying there, well, that's how you get the Dead Sea and the Great Salt Lake. You get a place of just salt, right? And so very little can grow there. You're going to kill off most of what you had there originally. Let's say you've got no input, but you've got only output. Well, obviously, if the water's all leaving, it's going to dry up, right? And so it cannot exist how you intend, or whatever it is you're working on can't exist how you intend it without both input and the output. Something else to consider within this principle is the law of the vacuum. And I'm including that one inside this one because I feel like flow is the greater principle. But the law of vacuum says that nature abhors a vacuum and it will fill it. And if you are not intentional about how you're filling that, then you won't have control over what the end result will be, right? So if we don't proactively fill that space, then it will be filled by what the universe wants to fill it as. Or if you apply it to like things that we do, it will be filled by old habits or things that we've previously done, right? And the change that we want to make will not happen. I wanted to give you an example. So again, I mentioned looking at our bodies, right? So if we look at, let's just say health, like if we want to be healthy, right? We've got to feed our bodies with nutrient rich foods that will work well for our body. And obviously that changes by the person. And then we've got to expel the waste through our digestive system and also through exercise. And if we decide to remove a certain item, let's say you're trying to take away sugar, we've got to know in advance what you're replacing that with, or else guess what? You're just going to go back to that sugar because there's nothing there to replace it with, right? You haven't thought that through. So how to leverage this law? You're going to consistently reevaluate your systems. So your food systems, your relationship systems, your time systems, your idea generating systems, whatever it is that you are working on, whatever system it is that you're looking at has got to have that input and that output. So make sure you're providing new pieces of information or new relationships or whatever new time frames or whatever it is you're trying to work on, and then removing that which doesn't serve you anymore. Look at, and again, it could be relationships, it could be things that you do in your routine that really doesn't serve you, it could be mindsets that don't serve you anymore. Look at those systems, put in what is going to propel you forward, and remove that which is holding you back. And if you totally have to remove something, then make sure you have a replacement ready so that you don't fall back into old habits. Here is where that phrase is applicable. If you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. And that is so, so important with this law of the vacuum. Okay, so the last one we're going to talk about is the law of abundance. This law says that there is enough for everybody. End of story. And everybody wants their piece of the pie, right? When you are living within the realms of the law of abundance, you are actually making that pie bigger, thereby creating more pie for everybody. Whereas the opposite is true when you're in a scarcity mindset. The supply is then limited. You're just taking a slice and you're not creating anything else you're not replenishing it, right? This mindset is based in fear. It says that there's not enough. And so I shouldn't even have my piece, even though I want it. And so I'm going to deny myself the ability to have my piece of pie so that I don't take it away from somebody else. And this is so detrimental. It is based in fear. And people that I have seen, and I've totally seen this in real estate. So people who are abundant mindset, or have an abundant mindset, they actually create more business for themselves. And as they do that and they see all these different opportunities, guess what? They're bringing business to the lender. They're bringing business to, other agents. They're bringing business to title. And so all of these people are benefiting because one person created the business and made it more abundant. Whereas other people that I've seen who are more scarcity mindset, they have that scarcity mindset, they often don't see the opportunities in front of them. And so they actually lose out on business, not only for other people, but for themselves as well. And their business shrinks. And so if you are in that abundant mindset, you are going to create other opportunities and other bigger pieces of the pie for not just yourself, but for other people as well. So how do we leverage the law of abundance? Well, by doing several things. Number one, we practice gratitude every day. And be specific. If you're grateful for something that happened, be more specific. Maybe you're grateful for something that somebody said in those specific words. Maybe you're grateful for something else that came to pass, and you're like, oh, this led to that, and this is how that blessed my life. And if you can show that specific gratitude in the nuances of the realms of what you're working on, it will help you to see that abundance all around you. It will help you to see the miracles. It will help you to see the opportunities. It's truly, truly amazing. Another way that we can leverage the law of abundance is to act daily on our goals. If we are not moving towards our goals, it is really difficult for this law of abundance to be enacted. So movement is what makes the law of abundance happen. Because if we are not moving, then nothing can come into our life, right? And so that abundance can't come to us. We have to move towards it. And so act daily on your goals. Sit down and go, this is my goal. What specific item am I going to do today in order to reach the goal that I'm trying to get to? And then number 3, expect and look for new opportunities. And those new opportunities, they might be something super small, but they are still new opportunities, and they will lead you towards that higher abundance. And then say positive affirmations out loud. And this is so important. I think it's important to write them, but I think it's so, so important to say them out loud, to hear yourself say them and to feel that vibration in your body. Remember that it kind of goes back to that law of vibration. Now, everything has that vibe. And if we are physically creating that vibration, then we will be able to enact that law of abundance every single day. These laws don't change, right? They are always there. They don't have any feelings towards you. They just are. Just like gravity exists, these laws exist. And the magic happens when we are able to take these laws and do those things that will leverage them, that will get us, and not just next step, but actually propel us forward to where we want to be. And if we are in alignment with them, then that leverage just is so, so amazing. This takes effort. It's not always easy. I'm not perfect in them all the time. I have to go back and course correct. And guess what? That is life. That is what life means. It is part of the adventure of life to be able to reevaluate and to reset your priorities and to start again every single day. And I hope that this has given you an opportunity to understand what the laws of success are, these laws of success, these laws of prosperity, however you want to define them. But they are there, and you cannot deny them. Once you understand them, you'll be able to see them in your life. And once you start using those principles of leverage, you will it's almost addicting. Oh my gosh, how can I do this even more in my life? It's just so, so exciting. And I hope that you can catch that excitement too. And with that, I hope you also know that your purpose is in your story, and the way to find that purpose is through your story. And I hope that you can take this to heart and to leverage these laws to propel you to where you want to go. And until next time, take care.
Celebrate your dreams, let them take flight, for you are a star, shining bright in every step you take. Let your light glow, being you is the greatest way to